The first thing I did after becoming a zombie was kidnap a beautiful woman to have my baby. And it's all because this is a zombie apocalypse. I traveled through time only to turn into a zombie right away. Luckily, I got the many children, many blessings system. As long as I get humans to have babies with me, I can get all kinds of rewards. At that moment, a girl was screaming in terror at me, sitting on the ground, waving her hands desperately to beg for mercy, crying out, "Don't eat me! Don't eat me!" But I just walked straight up to her and reached out to hold her down. When the girl saw this, she closed her eyes in despair, convinced she was going to die, but the expected biting never came. Instead, a tissue gently wiped the dirt off her face. The girl was completely dumbfounded, her eyes wide open in shock. She couldn't understand why the zombie wasn't eating her, but instead was helping her wipe her face. I didn't explain anything to her, just tossed the wet wipe aside, then helped straighten out her clothes. This made the girl even more confused. Not the sharpest tool in the shed to begin with, her mind was now completely blank. She just stood there dumbly as I adjusted her clothes. It wasn't until I stopped moving that she finally came to her senses. Then she spoke up weakly. "Please, don't eat me. If you're hungry, you can eat spicy strips. They're really delicious." Then she tremblingly held out a pack of spicy strips to me. I reached out and took it, but I didn't eat it, just threw it aside directly. The girl trembled all over when she saw this. Her already terrified heart finally couldn't take it anymore, and she burst into sobs. "I won't eat you, but you have to agree to one thing. If you agree, not only won't I eat you, but I'll also give you food, so you'll never go hungry again." I held up a notebook with these lines written on it. After reading it, the girl didn't hesitate and nodded repeatedly. "Okay, as long as you don't eat me, I'll do anything you want." Even though she didn't understand why a zombie could write, it didn't stop her from agreeing. At that moment, I wrote again and held the notebook out to her again. "It's simple. Help me have a baby." This line was very short, but when the girl read it, she froze completely. Her mind went blank and she couldn't say a word. A zombie was actually asking her to help have a baby? If she hadn't experienced it herself, she would never have believed it. After a long time, she finally managed to process this information. "Help you have a baby? Did I read that right?" I nodded, confirming it was correct. Can I refuse?" The girl swallowed hard. In all her life, she had never even held a boy's hand, and now she was being asked to help have a baby. It was really putting her in a tough spot. Hearing this, I took back the notebook and started writing again. "You can, but I'm hungry now. I'm really hungry. And you look quite tasty." When the girl saw this, she quickly reached out to stop me, then burst into tears again. "Don't cry. I won't make you help for nothing. Besides the food I mentioned earlier, I'll also protect your safety. You know how dangerous it is outside. Can you survive alone? Think about it differently. You're just finding a partner who's a little different. A different partner." This different partner was really way too different. The girl was stunned for a moment. Accepting it was definitely still hard. But with this reasoning, her thoughts started to gradually change. Her parents were all missing. She had barely survived for a month, thanks to the supplies from her family's former maid. Deep down, she had long wanted someone to rely on. Having a baby was indeed hard to accept. But compared to being eaten bit by bit, it wasn't that hard to accept anymore. As she thought about it, the girl nodded in a daze, agreeing to it. Then she bit her lip lightly and closed her eyes. I didn't play the role of a gentleman and closed the door directly. Only then did the system notification sound. "Congratulations, host, you've successfully married a wife. Reward, 1 vial of blood purification liquid. It can purify your bloodline and enhance your overall abilities." When I saw the system's reward, my eyes lit up immediately. I'm just an ordinary zombie now, with one of the lowest bloodlines possible. Talking about going head-to-head with hot weapons. Even a bolder ordinary human might be able to take me down. Only timid girls like this are easy to handle. Such a lousy bloodline definitely needs to be strengthened. Otherwise, I really can't guarantee my safety. After all, I'm not alone anymore. I now have a girl helping me have a baby. I really need some strength. So I tilted my head back and drank the evolution liquid. In an instant, a surge of energy exploded inside me, destroying my body before quickly repairing it. After the powerful effect of the liquid subsided, the zombie features on my body were almost gone. The only thing that was still different were my scarlet violent eyes, Then I reached out and grabbed the ground. The hard floor was like tofu. I easily dug out a piece and crushed it into powder with a light squeeze. This made me extremely excited. The system really didn't let me down. With my current strength, protecting myself is definitely no problem. And this is just the reward for marrying a wife. When the girl helps me have a baby, and I get the many children, many blessings reward, that will be the real big prize. Once I have enough strength, I can go to more places and care for more girls, even enter the doomsday bases where a large number of survivors gather. At that time, I can marry. The more I thought about it, the hotter my heart became, and I looked at the girl not far away. The great cause of having children must not be delayed. Meanwhile, Wang Mengmeng was completely dumbfounded. She never thought she would lose her innocence like this, and her partner was even a zombie. After snapping out of her terrified state, she was shocked by herself. Why did I agree to that? What am I going to do now? Should I try to escape, or really keep the deal and help have a baby? But if I escape, where can I go? The first time she had left her hiding rental house, she had encountered something like this. It was clear the world was even more terrifying than she had imagined. As Wang Mengmeng thought about this, she felt sad and burst into tears again. But before she could cry for long, I walked up to her again. Seeing this, Wang Mengmeng timidly crossed her arms over her chest. What do you want? Hearing this, I held out the notebook to her, with only 3 big characters written on it. Have a baby. When Wang Mengmeng saw the words in the notebook, she wanted to say something more, but it was already too late. It wasn't until night fell that the store finally returned to calm. Wang Mengmeng felt like her body was falling apart. She never thought having a baby would be so tiring. As her mind wandered, I held out a piece of chocolate to her. For me? Wang Mengmeng asked in disbelief. Hearing this, I nodded. This surprised Wang Mengmeng greatly. After all she had been through, she had long labeled me as evil, thinking I would only bully her. But now I didn't seem as bad as she had imagined. If she ignored my identity as a zombie, it wasn't actually that bad. Except for constantly asking her to help have a baby, everything else was fine. She opened the wrapper and took a bite, and a look of happiness immediately appeared on Wang Mengmeng's face. So easy to please with just a bite of food. Really naive and cute. Her naive cuteness is one of a kind. Looking at her, this partner I'd found just for the system rewards. I didn't have any real affection for her, but seeing her naive, cute look, I couldn't help but feel a little regret. After all, who could refuse such a silly girlfriend? So we sat there, her eating, me feeding her, and the atmosphere was surprisingly harmonious. After eating and drinking their fill, Wang Mengmeng gradually relaxed and stopped overthinking. I couldn't help but smile. Getting someone to have a baby with you obviously wasn't just about scaring or forcing them. They had to truly not be repulsed by it, for everything to fall into place. By then, the night outside had grown darker. The outdoors at night were a total no-go zone, because zombies became even more active after dark. This made Wang Mengmeng a little scared, especially the occasional zombie roars from outside, which made her unconsciously lean closer to me, completely forgetting that I was also a zombie. Maybe she was just too tired. Now that she'd found someone to rely on, Wang Mengmeng actually fell asleep soon after. Early the next morning, I was woken up by a system notification. Your wife Wang Mengmeng's affection level for you has increased. Reward: small affection boost gift pack. Host, keep up the good work. Make your wife wholeheartedly devoted to you soon. And feel at ease raising your children. There were even rewards for increasing affection. I couldn't help but feel surprised. This system was basically giving out free benefits. And as for Wang Mengmeng, why would her affection go up early in the morning? Lin Fan opened his eyes confused, and was met with a small, round face. It was Wang Mengmeng, whose affection had somehow increased. She was staring fixedly at his face. When she saw him open his eyes, she quickly lay back down and closed her eyes, pretending to sleep. But whether it was guilt or something else, her cheeks were slightly flushed. Lin Fan touched his face, where she'd been staring. There was no rotting flesh like a typical zombie's. It looked no different from a normal person's. The same went for every other part of his body, except for a slight paleness. But this unhealthy paleness was actually quite popular these days. Those idle trainees' faces were painted whiter and whiter. They might as well have been using wall paint. His slightly unhealthy pale complexion actually boosted his personal charm, especially for younger girls. Paired with his good-looking features, it was definitely more appealing. So she's looks-oriented, huh? Lin Fan understood why her affection had gone up. Early in the morning, she'd secretly stared at him up close, taking a good look, and realized he wasn't scary like ordinary zombies, but actually very good-looking, someone who fit her aesthetic. Plus what had happened between them, her affection naturally increased. Total looks-oriented type. But this was a good thing. It not only improved their relationship, but also earned him system rewards. Thinking about the system reward, Lin Fan immediately looked at the claimable small gift pack. What would be inside? Lin Fan couldn't help but feel expectation. Open the gift pack? Lin Fan didn't waste any time. He glanced at the woman pretending to sleep, and chose to open the gift pack directly. On the translucent screen only he could see. A small red gift pack slowly opened, bathed in a soft glow, revealing the item inside. It was a pair of rimless glasses. They looked unremarkable, but could adjust their tint based on light. But that wasn't their main feature. Their main appeal was their special effect. Light concentrating glasses. Effect Focus Light 2. Improve the wearer's eyesight and enable night vision. Trait 1, Indestructible. Trait 2, Can be made invisible. Improve eyesight. For someone with normal eyesight, this was completely useless. It might even be harmful. But for Lin Fan, it was exactly what he needed. It was like sending charcoal in a snowstorm. As everyone knows, zombies have an extremely sharp sense of smell, like a human-shaped bloodhound, but this powerful sense of smell comes at the cost of poor eyesight. In other words, all zombies have bad eyesight. Lin Fan was special. Not only was he a time traveler with human consciousness, but he'd also been modified when the system activated, giving him abilities almost on par with a normal human's. But his poor eyesight was still a weakness. He could see clearly up close. But once things were far away, he struggled to make them out. If it were just normal life, this slight myopia wouldn't be a big deal. It wouldn't affect him much. Lots of people who use phones a lot have this, but in a dangerous doomsday environment, it was a death sentence. You never know when danger will come. If you can't spot it from far away and escape, you'll die without knowing why. Even though Lin Fan had become stronger, he still needed to avoid certain dangers. Not to mention these glasses also had night vision, letting him see clearly at night. This was definitely an incredible advantage. As for the indestructible trait, that was also a great feature, so he didn't have to worry about getting his eyes hurt in battles. And finally, the invisibility trait could cater to the wearer's personal preference. All in all, it had tons of benefits. Lin Fan was very satisfied with it. He never expected this small gift pack, from increasing affection, would give him such a useful item. It was completely beyond his expectations. He'd thought a simple small gift pack like this would just have some food or drinks, but instead, he got a top-tier item, one that was perfect for him. Lin Fan glanced again at the woman still pretending to sleep, then lifted his hand and put on the glasses. His previously blurry vision suddenly became crystal clear, on par with a sniper's eyesight. The description wasn't an exaggeration. It really did greatly improve his eyesight. Lin Fan couldn't help but grin. He reached out and patted the pretending to sleep woman's head. To be honest, this girl was really his cash cow. She'd helped him get system rewards again and again. Wang Mengmeng didn't know what was happening as her head was patted. She unconsciously shrank her head, a little worried. Would this baby-obsessed zombie try to bully her again? But the expected bullying never came. The hand patted her a few times and then left, and its owner got up and walked away. Before long, the sound of the store's roller shutter opening and closing was heard. Hearing this sound, she opened her pretending to sleep eyes, wanting to see why he was opening the door. But what she saw when she opened her eyes made her completely panicky, because the strange, good-looking zombie who'd been asking her to have a baby with him was gone. She jumped up immediately, forgetting all about pretending to sleep. Logically, this should have been a good thing. If Lin Fan the zombie was gone, she'd be free. But for some reason, she couldn't feel happy at all. In fact, her heart felt terrible, her eyes unconsciously welling up with tears. She bit her lip lightly. Early in the morning, given her foodie nature, she should have been stuffing her face with food, but now she had no appetite for it. Not even a little, even if there were all kinds of her favorite snacks. Time passed slowly, and the terrible feeling in her heart grew stronger. Having never been in a relationship before, she didn't know why she felt this way, but she just felt terrible. Thankfully, it didn't last long. The closed roller shutter was opened from the outside, and the strange zombie who'd disappeared was back. Or rather, he'd returned, almost instinctively. Wang Mengmeng rushed toward him. It wasn't until she was almost in front of Lin Fan that she remembered something, and stopped in her tracks. Where did you go? She'd stopped moving, but she couldn't help but ask, her voice still timid, but there was something different in it this time. Seeing this, Lin Fan smiled slightly, closed the roller shutter properly, then held out what he was holding in his hand. It was a paper bag for clothes. With a few pieces of clothing inside, Wang Mengmeng's eyes were immediately drawn to it. For me? She asked, a little unsure. Lin Fan nodded. With confirmation, Wang Mengmeng reached out and took the paper bag. Looking at the women's dresses and skirts inside, she finally understood what Lin Fan had gone out to do earlier. He hadn't abandoned her. He'd gone to find clothes for her. After 2 intense rounds of intimacy, apart from her hoodie, her jacket was in slightly better shape. But the women's blouse underneath was tattered, and her pants were no better. There was no help for it. After turning into a zombie, he'd been affected somewhat, and had been a bit rough during their intimacy. It was nothing serious. Many couples who are more adventurous end up with unwearable clothes too. Right now, she had nothing on but the hoodie, and felt completely exposed. Clearly, Lin Fan had noticed this too, which was why he'd gone out to find her clothes. It was such a thoughtful gesture. Having never been in a relationship before, she was immediately warmed by this thoughtfulness. No affection reward popped up from the system, but her affection had clearly increased, just not enough to meet the reward threshold. So the small gift pack hadn't been issued yet. Lin Fan didn't feel any regret about it. He hadn't done it for the reward anyway. As long as her affection kept increasing, the system reward would definitely come eventually. Thank you, Wang Mengmeng said, hugging the clothes. This time there was more shyness in her voice than before. Put them on first. Lin Fan took out his notebook to write, to communicate with her. The bloodline evolution had enhanced him in all aspects, but his throat still hadn't recovered. He still couldn't speak, only make eerie growls, though it was slightly better than before. As long as he got a few more vials of blood essence liquid, regaining the ability to speak would definitely be easy. Wang Mengmeng was used to this way of communicating now. She nodded in response and walked behind the shelf to try on the clothes. She really was carefree. After just 2 days of being together, she'd gotten used to being around Lin Fan, almost forgetting that he was a zombie, treating him like any normal person. But it wasn't entirely wrong. After all, apart from the zombie traits in his body, Lin Fan was just like a normal person in every other way. In this doomsday where humans preyed on each other, other normal humans might not even be as good as this zombie of his. A naive, cute girl like Wang Mengmeng was lucky to have met him. Otherwise, she would have been eaten down to the bones. It was like fools have fools' luck. Lin Fan smiled to himself, then reached out to organize the other item he'd brought back. It was a domestic smartphone, which he'd picked up from the clothing store earlier. Its original owner was the store's owner, who'd turned into a zombie. But now Lin Fan was its new owner. He'd unlocked it with the zombie owner's fingerprint and changed the password. So Lin Fan, the new owner, had full control over it, but it had no power now. So he could only charge it with the original portable charger. Once the charger died, he'd have to find a new one. It was much more troublesome than before, but it would work for now. He entered the reset password to unlock it, and Lin Fan started operating it. The convenience store fell silent. Wang Mengmeng got dressed quickly, but even though she was fully dressed, she was too shy to come out. It wasn't because the clothes were ugly and she was embarrassed to be seen, but because the clothes Lin Fan had brought her made her feel shy. The fitted white women's blouse was normal enough, but the bottom was a short pleated skirt, paired with white thigh-high stockings that reached mid-thigh. This outfit looked like it was begging for trouble. Why had Lin Fan brought her such clothes? What was he planning to do? Memories of the previous day couldn't help but flash through her mind, and her face turned red again instantly. Lin Fan, who was operating the phone, hadn't thought that much. This kind of outfit was everywhere before the doomsday. Not hearing any movement for a while, he put down the phone and tapped the shelf with his hand. Hearing the tapping on the shelf, Wang Mengmeng knew Lin Fan was looking for her, even though she still felt uncontrollably shy. She still walked out from behind the shelf. She still felt a little scared of this strange zombie, Lin Fan. Lin Fan really hadn't been thinking about anything inappropriate. Most of the women's clothes in the store were like that. He just picked up the right size casually. But when Wang Mengmeng came out, wearing the outfit he'd chosen, It wasn't that the outfit itself was amazing, but that Wang Mengmeng had an incredible figure. Her impressive curves stretched the originally somewhat loose blouse tight against her body, creating a striking outline, making anyone's eyes lock onto her at first glance. He couldn't help but imagine the buttons popping off. The legs under the pleated skirt weren't the skinny type of a young girl, but the fair, rounded, long and straight legs of a mature woman, paired with the translucent white thigh highs. No wonder Wang Mengmeng had wondered what he was up to. When she put on this outfit, he really was tempted now. By the sight of her, under Lin Fan's intense gaze, Wang Mengmeng's face turned even redder. She wanted to say something, to ease the burning tension that felt like it would melt her. But as soon as she opened her mouth, Lin Fan lifted her up in his arms, wrapping one arm around her waist. "Don't speak. In an hour. This will all be over." Lin Fan couldn't help but sigh. He'd barely lasted an hour, while Wang Mengmeng covered her face, wanting to cry. Lin Fan really had been up to no good. Her guess had been right, but each time they became more intimate. Their relationship grew closer. Wang Mengmeng no longer needed Lin Fan to feed her. She went to find food on her own to regain her strength. The convenience store was filled with all kinds of snacks and drinks. It was a paradise for someone who loved snacks like her. She soon immersed herself in the sea of delicious snacks. Lin Fan watched quietly from the side. He could eat these snacks too. But to a zombie's taste buds, eating these snacks was no different from eating something extremely spicy. Not only did they not taste good, they were also very hard to swallow. So they held little appeal for him. But every time he looked at Wang Mengmeng, a living person, he felt an urge to bite her and eat her flesh. It was only suppressed by his human consciousness, thinking about eating meat. Lin Fan touched his stomach and couldn't help but feel a little hungry. Zombies didn't die if they didn't eat, but they still felt hungry. That was why zombies went so crazy chasing living creatures as soon as they encountered them, especially a zombie like Lin Fan, who was intimate with Wang Mengmeng every day. He felt even hungrier. After all, each time it consumes a lot of energy, often billions of units of energy at a time. Energy is conserved. If you consume it, you naturally need to replenish it. But the convenience store had nothing to replenish his energy. To replenish, he had to go out and find something. He didn't need to find living humans to eat. Other living creatures could also replenish his energy, like uninfected chickens and ducks, or uninfected cows and sheep. Even various fish in the water, all of them were edible. Compared to the first two, fish were easier to get in the city. There were many fish in various man-made lakes. You could easily fish them out. Coincidentally, when he went out to get clothes earlier, he'd seen a fairly large man-made lake. As long as he found a fishing rod and bait, he could make himself something to eat. Sashimi was still a pretty good dish. He decided to act immediately. This time of day was when fish were most likely to bite. "I'm going out for a bit." "Stay in the store. Don't go out. Here, you can play with this if you're bored." Lin Fan picked up the notebook and the phone he'd brought back from the clothing store. He'd originally brought the phone back to use the internet, to learn about doomsday information through it. Unfortunately, the internet was down, with no power and no one to maintain it. There was no signal left. It wasn't just the internet that didn't work. Even emergency calls couldn't be made. But playing offline mobile games or watching downloaded movies was still possible. There were many offline games on this phone, and quite a few downloaded movies. Wang Mengmeng could definitely use it to pass the time, so she wouldn't be bored alone. "You're going out to play." Wang Mengmeng took the phone, but didn't start playing it right away. Instead, she looked at Lin Fan. She didn't want to experience the feeling she'd had. When Lin Fan had left earlier again, deep down she didn't want Lin Fan to go out, but she couldn't force him to stay, so she could only look at Lin Fan and ask, "Don't worry, I'll be right back." Lin Fan wrote quickly again, then patted her little head. Their affection had grown. They were more and more like a couple. "Be careful." Enjoying Lin Fan's gentle pat, she didn't say anything more, only giving a somewhat awkward reminder. "I will," he replied in the notebook. Then Lin Fan put on his clothes, opened the roller shutter, and went out. Wang Mengmeng watched him leave. When the roller shutter closed again, she sat down on the floor, hugging her knees, her chin resting on her knees, her eyes staring blankly at the closed roller shutter. Outside, Lin Fan couldn't see what was happening inside the store. He locked the roller shutter to prevent anything from breaking in, then walked towards the nearby fishing tackle shop. This was a commercial street, with all kinds of shops, but there were also many wandering zombies, all with terrifying appearances. gasping like broken bellows, staggering around aimlessly, scarier than any zombie movie. Just looking at them made one's blood run cold. Cars were scattered randomly on the road. Blood and bones were everywhere on the ground. Some cars had crashed into roadside shops, causing fires. Thick smoke filled the air. Black smoke was still rising even now. At a glance, the world was filled with doomsday desolation. It took courage for Wang Mengmeng to come to this convenience store for food. In such an environment, she was timid, but when she was hungry, her courage grew. The sound of Lin Fan opening and closing the door quickly attracted the attention of many zombies, but when they smelled that he was one of their own, they soon wandered away again. Lin Fan smiled slightly at this. In the current zombie version, being a zombie was like a get-out-of-jail-free card. He arrived at the fishing tackle shop smoothly. The shop owner had also turned into a zombie but didn't react to his arrival. So Lin Fan shopped for free in front of the owner, picking the most expensive bait. And the same for fishing rods. Today he was determined to catch fish. A fisherman who catches nothing will never go empty-handed. There were also zombies wandering around the man-made lake, but they didn't bother Lin Fan. He took his fishing gear and sat down in a shady spot, then opened the chum and started chumming the water. To catch many fish, you must use a lot of chum. This much he knew. Anyway, it was free. No need to feel bad about wasting it. Plop plop sounds kept ringing out. Lumps of chum fell into the lake like raindrops, contributing significantly to the lake's water level, enough to deserve a bonus for it. After pouring dozens of pounds of chum, Lin Fan mixed the bait with water and prepared his fishing tackle. Everything was ready. Now it was time to fish. The hook with bait sailed in a perfect arc. Lin Fan sat on a small stool by the shore. In his mind, with so much chum thrown in, he was sure to catch a bucket full of fish. Even a simple chicken feeder would be enough to hold them. After all, the fish in the man-made lake were not that smart. But in reality, the float didn't move for 5 minutes. 10 minutes passed and the float still didn't move. He reeled it in, rebaited, and cast again. 5 minutes later, the float was still motionless. 10 minutes passed and there was still no movement. He reeled in and cast again. He kept trying. But by the time the sun began to set, the float was still as ever. The fish basket he'd put in the water earlier was just as empty as the float. Damn it, Lin Fan finally lost his cool. He stood up in a rage, snapped the fishing rod in one hand, and threw it into the man-made lake. Fish, my ass! I have to drain the water. These ungrateful brats won't get away with this. Lin Fan stormed off with the broken fishing rod, planning to find a water pump to drain the lake. Laver an egg drop soup. If you don't come out, then I'll have to eat bullets. A fisherman can put up with anything, but not ungrateful fish. I won't spoil them. Not only that, I'll teach them a hard lesson, until they know their place. Just as he stormed off in a huff, in a building not far from the man-made lake, a figure with an open mouth finally came to her senses and withdrew her gaze from the window. She walked up to a man. Brother, I just saw a zombie who was fishing, and when he couldn't catch any, he even yelled and screamed. She was a young girl, wearing a high school uniform with double ponytails and big, bright, sparkling eyes. She walked up to her brother and excitedly told him what she'd seen, as if she'd witnessed something incredible. And it was indeed incredible. After all, a zombie that fishes and throws a tantrum when it can't catch any was unheard of. Not even in movies. No movie would dare to film something like that, because it would definitely flop at the box office. What nonsense are you talking about? What kind of zombie knows how to fish? Her brother heard this and shook his head helplessly. Clearly, he didn't believe her story, and he had good reason not to. It wasn't just illogical, but also because he himself had gone out many times to find food, and had even killed zombies with his own hands. He knew zombies better than anyone. They were mindless monsters, driven only by the instinct to find food. Communication was impossible with them, even if there were exceptions. They still revolved around that one instinct. The only difference was their strength, not to mention fishing. They wouldn't even glance at a bottle of water, and throwing a tantrum when they can't catch fish. How could that be possible? It's true, I'm not lying! If you don't believe me, come see for yourself. The sister got anxious. When she saw he didn't believe her, she was being serious. She wasn't making it up, she'd really seen it. Her brother still shook his head. Come look! The sister pulled her brother's hand, determined to prove she wasn't lying. Her brother couldn't resist her insistence, so he let her pull him over to the window to look for the so-called zombie. Fishing in such a harsh environment, his sister could still remain innocent and lively. It was clear he was a total sister con. Otherwise, he wouldn't have protected her so well. Even though he thought his sister was talking nonsense, he still looked out the window. Where is it? They were on the 10th floor, with a clear view of the entire man-made lake. There were indeed many zombies wandering by the lake, but there was no sign of a zombie that could fish. That's weird. He was here just now. And what about the fishing rod he broke? The sister saw the same thing as her brother, but she'd clearly seen him earlier. And the broken fishing rod he'd thrown into the water. It should still be floating on the lake surface. But now it was all gone. Okay, if you're bored, go play games on your phone. Running around will make you hungry faster. Food is hard to come by now. We need to save as much as we can, her brother said helplessly. The sister pouted, wanting to say more, but she thought about how hard her brother worked to find food, and finally obeyed, picking up her phone to play. Offline games were boring, but there weren't many forms of entertainment left now. She was still lucky to have a brother who doted on her and protected her. She didn't have to worry about food or loneliness alone, and she even had a phone to play with. When it ran out of power, her brother would bring back a portable charger. This quality of life was definitely not as good as before the doomsday. But for the present, it was already pretty good. Even like paradise. She was naive by nature, but that didn't mean she was stupid. She still knew right from wrong. Her brother patted her head, his face filled with deep affection. Their parents had lost contact completely, and the chances of them being alive were slim. As her older brother, he naturally had to protect her well. Now, seeing how sensible his sister was, he felt a great sense of relief. On the other side, Lin Fan held the broken fishing rod, his face full of apology. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have blamed you. It's not your fault that I couldn't catch any fish, he said apologetically to the rod. He had stormed off in a rage earlier, but then thought it was silly to blame the rod for his bad fishing. So he fished the rod out of the lake again, and apologized to it. The sister couldn't see the rod, because he had already retrieved it. By now he had left the man-made lake. The fishing rod didn't respond, just silently letting this empty-handed fisherman monologue. Not talking? Then I'll take that as you forgiving me. You're such a generous little thing. Lin Fan laughed, the apology on his face fading. Then he tossed the rod into a trash can without a second thought, and that was the end of that. But the fish in the lake being so ungrateful was something he wouldn't let go of. Water pumps were hard to find, but getting some fishing nets would be easy. We'll see if those fish still dare to be ungrateful. The fishing tackle shop had nets. He could just shop for free again. No more daydreaming. Time to get to work. He quickly returned to the street, planning to go back to the tackle shop for nets. But when he glanced at the convenience store's roller shutter by chance, his expression changed drastically, and he forgot all about getting the nets, because the lock on the roller shutter had been violently pried open. Scream all you want, no one will come to save you. If you attract zombies, you'll only die a more miserable death. They'll tear you apart and eat you bit by bit. Alive. Inside the convenience store, besides Wang Mengmeng, who was waiting for Lin Fan's return, there were 3 young men with lewd expressions. They wore obscene smiles, cornering Wang Mengmeng against the end of a shelf. Don't come any closer! My husband will be back soon. He won't let you get away with this. Wang Mengmeng held a fruit knife against the 3 men, trying her best to look fierce. But her innocent, cute appearance failed to make the 3 men wary. Instead, it made them even more excited. They stepped closer and closer. As for her threats, the 3 men didn't take them seriously at all. In the doomsday, anyone who dared to wander outside was either someone like Wang Mengmeng, starving, forced to come out of hiding, or genuine tough guys. Clearly, these 3 were the latter. 2 of them held large machetes in their hands, still stained with blood. Obviously, these weren't just for show. They had actually used them to kill zombies or other survivors. But the man in the middle was even more fearsome, because what he held was the ultimate truth: a handmade shotgun. A handmade shotgun is a bit crude, but a gun is still a gun. A real deadly weapon. Faced with such a powerful weapon, they won't fear Wang Mengmeng's threats. When her husband comes back, he won't let them off. It's better if her husband doesn't come back. If he does, they won't mind having some fresh meat. Ignoring this collapsed era is the most normal thing ever. So in the face of fierce threats, they just laugh loudly. Your husband won't let you off? Believe it or not, when he comes back, we'll ravage her fiercely right in front of him, and he won't even dare to fart. A man holding a shotgun said with a menacing grin. A perverted glint flashed in his eyes. The two with knives said nothing, but from their eager expressions, you could tell what they were thinking. It was obvious now. They were also very restless. Faced with this situation, Wang Mengmeng's face turned deathly pale. She could no longer maintain her forced ferocity, but just as she fell into complete despair, preparing to kill herself with the fruit knife in her hand, the closed roller shutter door made a clattering sound, and someone pushed it open from the outside. Then a figure walked in, bathed in light. The light made the view a bit hazy, but the desperate Wang Mengmeng still recognized him at a glance. It was Lin Fan, the strange zombie who liked to have kids, the husband she had used to threaten them. Her husband had really come back. Just as she was about to commit suicide in despair, he walked into her sight, bathed in light. "Hubby!" Wang Mengmeng blurted out instinctively. Then she pushed hard against the three surrounding her, and ran as fast as she could in her life, to Lin Fan's side. "You're finally back!" She ran to Lin Fan's side, saying excitedly with a beaming face. Lin Fan nodded slightly. He gently reached out and patted her head to comfort her, then turned to look at the three intruders. His expression turned icy cold in the process. He didn't say anything, but in his heart, he had already sentenced the three to death. "This is your husband?" Came back at just the right time, like a hero returning. But that's perfect. I just love showing off in front of heroes. The three looked at Lin Fan and snickered. When they said showing off at the end, they emphasized the tone. The meaning behind it was self-evident. It was their perverted hobby. As for Lin Fan's icy cold expression, they just laughed it off. "We hold the truth in our hands. Dare Lin Fan even move a finger? Run! They have a gun! It can even shoot through walls." Wang Mengmeng came to her senses and quickly warned Lin Fan. She was worried that this strange zombie, Lin Fan, wouldn't understand the gun's power, so she also described its power. After speaking, she grabbed Lin Fan's hand, wanting to turn around and run out the door with him, but she couldn't move him at all, because Lin Fan had no intention of running away. Wang Mengmeng grew anxious when she saw this. They were at the door now, so they still had a chance to escape. The other side had big machetes and a gun. If they stayed, they'd only die. Lin Fan still didn't move. Instead, the other side spoke up. "Hey, your husband is smart. He knows he can't run. After all, can you run faster than a bullet?" "Ha ha!" The two with knives laughed triumphantly. "Kid, send your woman over to us. Then do as we say obediently. If we brothers are happy, it's not impossible for us to let you off." The man with the gun continued smiling. He wanted Lin Fan to send his own woman right to his face. With truth in his hands, he didn't think Lin Fan would dare to defy his order. Wang Mengmeng's face turned pale again. She stared fixedly at Lin Fan, and worry couldn't help but well up in her heart. She worried if Lin Fan would really send her to the other side. Thankfully, although Lin Fan didn't run, he didn't react at all when he heard their words. He still stood there, staring indifferently at the three as they talked to themselves. He looked at them like they were clowns performing. The three had been very proud at first, but as time passed, Lin Fan still stood in place, staring at them with the same watching clowns look. Gradually, they couldn't stay proud anymore. "You ungrateful bastard! Then go to hell!" The man with the gun was the most hot-tempered. He lifted the shotgun in his hand, ready to fire. He had deliberately installed a silencer on it, so the gunshot wouldn't be too loud. It wouldn't attract the zombies outside the street. But just as he was about to pull the trigger, his body suddenly trembled uncontrollably. Then his menacing expression froze on his face, and he couldn't even pull the trigger anymore. With great difficulty, he lowered his head. He didn't know when. Lin Fan had appeared right in front of him. Lin Fan's speed was so bizarre that he couldn't even see it. One of Lin Fan's arms had even stabbed directly into his chest, piercing straight through it. Then, accompanied by a dull thud, the arm pulled out of his chest. In it was a heart that was still beating slightly, constantly dripping with blood. His heart had been torn out. Torn out with bare hands! This scene was hard to believe, but it was happening to him right now. As he struggled to believe it, the hand holding his heart slowly tightened its grip. The heart, which had still been beating slightly, under the force of the grip, gradually began to flatten. No! He shook his head in terror, begging for mercy. This was his heart, after all. But the owner of the hand holding it paid no attention to his pleas. He continued to squeeze harder and harder. Finally, under his eyes filled with extreme terror, Lin Fan squeezed the heart to a pulp. Pieces of his heart flew everywhere. The man with the gun let out a final scream of terror, then breathed his last on the spot. He fell slowly to the floor, filled with endless fear. Gulu. The remaining two on the side had witnessed this scene with their own eyes. They couldn't help but swallow hard repeatedly. When Lin Fan, who had just ripped out a heart and squeezed it to a pulp with his bare hands, turned his gaze to them, they collapsed like never before, plopping down onto the ground. The person in front of them was definitely not human. Definitely not human. That terrifying speed just now. And that terrifying ability to pluck stars with bare hands. No ordinary person could do that. This completely defied all reason. "Spare us! Spare us!" the two begged, their faces deathly pale. Lin Fan didn't respond to them. He just took out a pack of wet wipes on his own, pulled one out and gently wiped the blood off his hands, as well as the filth left from the heart exploding. This action seemed very calm, but in the eyes of the two begging for mercy, it was the death knell. Once the death knell rang, it would be their end. Damn it, those who can survive in this post-apocalyptic mess all have a ruthless streak. Seeing that Lin Fan had no intention of letting them go at all, one of them suddenly grew desperate. He jumped up from the ground suddenly, holding a machete and slashing straight at Lin Fan's head. His machete was sharpened very keenly. It could even chop down zombies. The number of zombies he had killed these days was more than he could count on one hand. At this moment, he was confident. As long as his machete hit solidly, even if Lin Fan wasn't human, the injury would still be severe. It might even allow him to turn the tables, maybe even get a reversal kill. One of life's three great illusions. I can stage a comeback from a losing battle. Cutting through the air and descending, filled with his determination to turn the tables. But in the next moment, all of this was shattered. No fancy moves, just pure speed and strength. The same hand that had ripped out a heart with bare hands slowly lifted as the machete fell. Then the machete, which had been descending unstoppably, suddenly stopped. He'd caught the machete with his bare hand. This hand had accomplished another feat. The man who'd wanted to counterattack opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. All he felt was a numbness in his hand, and the machete slipped from his grasp. Then a flash of cold light slashed across his neck. A single slash, no hesitation. Lin Fan, who'd caught the blade with his bare hand, decapitated him on the spot. Now only one man remained. While Lin Fan was dealing with the second man, this last man quietly snuck behind Lin Fan and thrust his sharpened machete hard into Lin Fan's lower back. Unless you could decapitate with one slash, stabbing was more lethal than slashing. If the blade could pierce deep into the lower back, no matter how inhuman Lin Fan was, he'd have to drop to the ground, clutching his waist and screaming. It was a good plan, and his choice was the optimal one. But unfortunately, with the enhancement from the blood purification liquid, Lin Fan had been enhanced in every aspect, not just terrifying strength and speed, but also a physique beyond what any normal human could achieve. Without a strong physique, you couldn't support such terrifying strength and speed. The sharp blade only pierced a tiny bit of skin before getting stuck by the steel-like muscles underneath. No matter how hard the man pushed, he couldn't drive it further in. How is this possible? He stammered. The last remaining man was stunned. When Lin Fan slowly turned his head to look at him, he completely broke down. He dropped his machete and ran toward the store's entrance. He had to escape. The person in front of him was definitely not human. He was a monster, plain and simple. Staying here meant death. Driven by an overwhelming survival instinct, he ran at an incredible speed. Even an Olympic sprint champion might not have been able to run this fast. This wasn't an exaggeration. There was once a cyclist who was chased by a wild black bear during a race, threatened by death. He'd broken the world record in a single burst. Before that incident, he'd just been an ordinary cyclist, facing this record-breaking escape driven by survival. A normal person might have let him get away. But this man, who'd broken the sprint record, wasn't up against a normal person. He was up against a terrifying zombie who had a system and had been enhanced beyond measure. A zombie monarch destined to stand at the peak in the future. The man tried to run away. Lin Fan hurled the machete in his hand. As the man ran, the machete pierced straight through his kidney, then carried by the remaining force, It nailed into the wooden cabinet of the cash register. A shrill scream echoed out. The loud noise immediately attracted the attention of the wandering zombies outside. Lin Fan had originally planned to deal with the man slowly, especially after the man had dared to stab him in the lower back. But seeing this scene, he frowned slightly. He wasn't afraid of zombies, but Wang Mengmeng couldn't handle them. If all the zombies were attracted here, he'd have to spend extra effort to clean them up. So he abandoned his plan to torture the man, walked over, grabbed the man by the scruff of his neck, and dragged him outside like he was carrying a chick, taking the initiative to meet the zombies drawn by the noise. Catching the scent of fresh blood, the zombies instantly became frantic. Their slow, wandering steps suddenly turned into a sprint. As soon as the zombies gathered, Lin Fan ran away from the convenience store. The zombies were firmly drawn by the smell of blood and followed him. As the distance grew, more and more zombies were attracted, surrounding the man with the pierced kidney from all directions. The man had resigned himself to death. But when he saw Lin Fan attracting so many zombies, he suddenly burst into wild laughter. He was definitely going to die, but his enemy Lin Fan would definitely meet a bad end too. Zombies were everywhere around them. Even if Lin Fan was a monster, he'd only have one way to go: death. Haha, brainless fool, die with me. Be my funeral sacrifice. The thought of Lin Fan dying too sent him into a state of crazy excitement. Lin Fan just smiled and said nothing. Be his funeral sacrifice? Who did he think he was? The man thought Lin Fan didn't know he was doomed, and continued his crazy, excited laughter. But when the zombies swarmed forward and started biting him, he couldn't laugh anymore. It wasn't because of the pain, but because he saw that all the swarming zombies only bit him. Lin Fan was standing right in front of him, but the zombies didn't touch him at all. He even saw that when zombies were about to bump into Lin Fan, they would subconsciously dodge. Zombies dodging a human? How is that possible? He stared wide-eyed and looked up at Lin Fan's face. The bright sunlight outside allowed him to see clearly those scarlet, brutal eyes, exactly like a zombie's. You really aren't human, he said his final words, then stopped breathing as the zombies gnawed on him. Before he died, he finally realized one thing. Lin Fan really wasn't human, but he'd realized it too late. Lin Fan casually tossed his tattered body aside, let the zombies roar and feast, then turned to leave. When the zombies on the way encountered him, they didn't dare to block his path at all. If you looked down from above, you could see a not-so-strong figure cutting through the horde of zombies like a ship through waves. Inside the convenience store, Wang Mengmeng was waiting anxiously. When she saw Lin Fan's figure return, she couldn't hold back her emotions any longer and threw herself into Lin Fan's arms, her hands tightly wrapping around his waist. Afraid that if she let go, she'd never see him again. She wanted to merge herself into his body. Just then, the system notification sounded again. Ding. Your wife Wang Mengmeng's affection for you has increased, reaching the green tenderness stage. Reward, affection upgrade gift pack. Host, keep up the good work. Make your wife wholeheartedly devoted to you soon, and feel at ease to bear your children. The system issued another reward, this time reaching the green tenderness stage. This was the stage of love at first sight. As their affection continued to warm up, Wang Mengmeng began to develop genuine feelings for Lin Fan. Her heart gradually became attached to him, with no more resistance. Lin Fan smiled at this, not just because of the system's new reward, but also because Wang Mengmeng had reached the green tenderness stage with him. From now on, she would no longer resist having his child. This was perfect. He didn't waste any time, and chose to claim the system gift pack directly. The small gift pack slowly opened, revealing an item in a glow of light. X-ray potion effect. After consumption, you will gain X-ray vision, which can see through illusions and objects. After reading the item description, Lin Fan was shocked. X-ray vision. He believed that any man would want this ability. In the dead of night, every time he imagined having this ability, he'd be happy all night. Not to mention using it to make money. Just walking down the street and seeing all kinds of beautiful scenery passing by would be enough to make him happy. And what did the female neighbor next door do at night? He believed many people wanted to know. And Lin Fan had also imagined it. But it had only been a fantasy. Such an ability was unrealistic to obtain. But now he had the chance to get it. The system had directly rewarded it to him. He looked down at the person tightly hugging him. She really was his money tree. or rather his treasure. Every reward from this girl had never disappointed him. After sighing again in his heart, Lin Fan drank the potion. He couldn't wait a second. For this long-awaited ability, the potion was contained in a small jade bottle, like a magic potion. It was a milky white liquid, thick and viscous when drunk, but once it reached his throat, it slid down smoothly. There was no violent medicinal power, only a warm feeling flowing through his pupils, like applying a warm towel. When the warmth faded, Lin Fan felt his vision change. Whenever he focused his attention to see through something, the original obstruction would gradually fade, and finally become completely transparent. Lin Fan's first reaction was to lower his head and look at the person in his arms. Her clothes gradually became transparent, revealing the scene every man dreamed of. This kind of peeking was filled with an unprecedented thrill. Lin Fan could barely hold himself back, his blood starting to boil. Wang Mengmeng held Lin Fan tightly, enjoying the reliable embrace that made her feel safe. But suddenly, something pressed against her. After Lin Fan's previous teachings, she was no longer the naive girl she used to be. She immediately realized what it was, her face turning red instantly. You're hurt!" Her face flushed. She pulled back a little, her words stammering. Lin Fan didn't reply. He lifted her up and placed her on the cash register. "Hurt? Don't be silly. It was just a small scratch that broke the skin. Even if he'd been cut a few times, in the current atmosphere, he wouldn't even frown." Wang Mengmeng let out a cry of surprise. And what happened next went without saying. Eventually things calmed down. Wang Mengmeng's hair was damp with sweat, and she was out of breath. But compared to before, there was more tenderness in her eyes, and a look of happiness on her face. After being intimate with Lin Fan, she was now willing to have his child. Even though having a child with a zombie sounded absurd, she was willing to do it from the bottom of her heart. Lin Fan saw this, gently helped her adjust her clothes. He got up to dress, wet hair tips dangling, cleaned up the mess in the convenience store. Two reckless intruders, their bodies were casually tossed onto the street, fed to the wandering zombies, then fetched a mop, began cleaning the bloodstains, disinfected the area simultaneously. "I helped you, Wang Mengmeng, regain your composure." Also got dressed, took the mop to help. Lin Fan didn't refuse. Wang Mengmeng mopped the floor. She opened a bottle of toilet water, sprinkled it to mask the stench of blood. With their combined efforts, the convenience store quickly returned to normal. But Lin Fan didn't stop there. Examined the damaged roller shutter door. He went out again. Wang Mengmeng wasn't worried this time. She waited quietly in the store, because she knew Lin Fan would never abandon her. This was certainly true. Not long after, Lin Fan returned, driving a three-wheeler, towing several large steel frames. A zombie driving a three-wheeler. The scene was almost too surreal. The vehicle's engine noise attracted a horde of zombies trailing behind, yet they moved in an orderly fashion, lacking the usual chaos of gathering zombies. Resembled a foreman leading workers, heading to a construction site. Wang Mengmeng watched through the window, thought the apocalypse wasn't so terrible after all. Zombies weren't that frightening. Of course, she knew this was an illusion. The reason was the uniqueness of the strange zombie she loved. Were all zombies in this world so special? Or was hers the only exception? Wang Mengmeng watched Lin Fan park the three-wheeler and drive away the zombies. She muttered absent-mindedly. How terrible apocalyptic zombies are. The world learned on day one. Otherwise, why would survivors hide? Struggling to survive. Do they dislike going out? Certainly not. It's all due to zombies' brutality. Worse than in movies. Not even mentioning infectivity. Even ordinary zombies are beyond average people's handling. Nothing like the shambling ones in films. Upon spotting prey, they charge like wild horses. Not to mention the terrifying secondary mutation zombies. Wang Mengmeng had seen one before. Annihilated an armed squad. That truly terrified her. Hid at home, too scared to venture out, until supplies ran out. She couldn't take it anymore and emerged. But now? She didn't know what to say. Outside, Lin Fan wasn't overthinking. He retrieved steel frames via three-wheeler to reinforce the convenience store entrance, making future break-ins harder. Stainless steel bars dismantled from a bank door, once installed and secured. Forcing entry would be extremely difficult. Being part of a bank's nighttime security door, even cutting with a grinder, would take extensive time. only someone with his terrifying strength could dismantle and transport them, drove the trailing zombies away to play. Lin Fan began fortifying the store, planning to convert the food-stocked shop into a shelter. He was now a married zombie. Needed to secure his home. Wang Mengmeng sat behind the counter, chin resting on her hands, watched Lin Fan bustling for their home. Her happiness grew, occasionally giggled foolishly. Lin Fan scratched his head at the sight. This girl he chose to bear his children was quite adorably clueless. Look at that silliness. Yet he didn't mind. Clueless. Perhaps not as capable as shrewd women, who could assist a man, but had advantages, namely obedience. He had a system, didn't need anyone's assistance, only desired obedience. Wang Mengmeng suited him perfectly, and appealed to him, hoped she'd bear more children, making life even more perfect. Lost in thought, Lin Fan smiled faintly. This was the life. So what if he transmigrated as a zombie, as long as he broadened his perspective? Indifference was for others, but first, he needed to fix his earlier mistake. Brought back a gill net. After reinforcing the door, he'd teach the fish in the man-made lake. Why flowers are so red, and nets so tight? The fish in the man-made lake at ease, feeding on bait, unaware of being targeted. Today, a fool dumped dozens of kilograms of bait, deciding to feast to their heart's content, until full. Calling the bait dumper a fool, not ungratefulness, but stating fact. Only a fool would use dozens of kilograms of bait for fishing. Fish already full. Who'd nibble? Your tiny hook bait? Ridiculous. Thus only a fool would do such a thing. The fool was unaware. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Here for revenge. Carrying a prepared gill net. As a true gentleman, never delayed revenge. After fortifying the store, he headed straight there. It was dusk. Visibility was limited, but with his spotlight glasses, unaffected. Dusk's hazy light seemed like daytime to him. Carrying the gill net to the lake, attracted several zombies, circling their own kind. Initially planned to enter the water, upon seeing the zombies, changed his mind. With his current physical condition, entering wouldn't harm him, but soaked clothes would be uncomfortable. Quickly decided to deploy the net, tied the net's cord to a zombie's waist. The bound zombie stared blankly, uncomprehending. Lin Fan offered no explanation. Once the net was secured, he positioned behind the zombie, found a spot, kicked forcefully. Splash! The zombie fell into the lake. Then, with the act of driving them away, the dazed zombie walked to the opposite bank. Higher-level bloodlines can command zombies. Zombie lords summoning hordes utilize this ability to attack targets. Lin Fan's bloodline not yet reached the zombie lord, but basic commands were easy. Using zombies to fish required unusual creativity. Splash! Zombies don't need to breathe. Waded to the opposite bank. The process is smooth. Net deployed quickly. Repeated the process. Zombies kicked into the lake. Multiple gill nets set. Lin Fan stood lakeside. Watched the nets. Smiled faintly. Refuse a toast. Now drink the forfeit. You'll regret it. But this matter wasn't over yet. He focused his mind and activated his clairvoyant ability. The lake water gradually faded. It turned transparent in his field of vision. Every fish swimming inside could no longer hide. Lin Fan broke into a mischievous smile. Then he continued with the nets. The free labor he just used was thrown into the water again. But this time it wasn't to cast nets. Instead, it was to drive out the fish hiding at the lake bottom. Splash, splash. Several zombies thrashed about in the water. The entire man-made lake turned turbid. The fish in the lake, frightened, began to dart around. Then they all crashed into the gill nets. 3-layered gill nets. Neither big nor small fish could escape. Lin Fan watched all this through his clairvoyant eyes. The frustration he felt from fishing during the day was finally thoroughly vented, but he didn't actually plan to catch every last fish. This place was almost a food source. So once enough fish were in the nets, he stopped driving them. After the free labor pulled up the cast nets, they saw the fresh fish being hauled up one by one. The several free laborers instantly grew excited, all eager to take big bites. This kind of fresh flesh and blood had an incomparable allure for them. But with Lin Fan, who hadn't lost his sanity, suppressing them, They wanted to move but didn't dare. Growing anxious and pacing around in circles, Lin Fan was amused by them. These zombies actually looked quite cute. Of course, this was only in his eyes. If humans encountered them, they would definitely teach humans what cruelty truly was, what terror truly was. Roar! Lin Fan let out a roar. The chaotic zombies immediately fell silent. Then they stood in line one by one, though they were all crooked. They still formed a line. At least they weren't chaotic. Getting zombies to line up was almost impossible. But now it was done. Lin Fan smiled in satisfaction at this sight. No wonder every boss likes to manage underlings. This feeling was indeed quite good. Once the line was formed, he finally started distributing the fish. These zombies had all put in effort. Naturally, he wouldn't be stingy. He wasn't like those greedy bosses. Each zombie was given several fish, all of decent size. They instantly grew overjoyed and picked up the fish, not even the fish bones. They even swallowed the fish intestines. If a single fish scale fell to the ground, they would pick it up and eat it. Their motto was, "Not a single bit goes to waste." Lin Fan couldn't even bear to look. This was simply disgracing their kind as zombies. What a gluttonous reincarnation. He kicked the zombie that was lying on the ground, licking fish scales. Lin Fan didn't glance at them again. Instead, he turned to pack the remaining fish into buckets. Besides sashimi for himself, he also planned to make fish soup, to nourish Wang Mengmeng, so she would have more abundant breast milk later. Just as Lin Fan was busy packing the fish, the girl from the building by the lake started making a fuss again. She found her brother. "Brother, come look quickly. Zombies are casting nets to catch fish, and they're lining up to eat." She found her brother, who was already lying on the bed resting, and shook him vigorously, saying, "Xiao Yue, be good. Brother has to go out to find food early tomorrow. If you can't sleep, play with your phone. I'll play with you tomorrow when I get back after work." Her brother's face was full of helplessness, mixed with a hint of tiredness. He said, "Zombies casting nets to catch fish and lining up to eat? Why not say they're building rockets to go to space and build a space station?" "I'm telling the truth. I'm not joking with you." The girl was so anxious she almost jumped. That strange zombie is still collecting the fish from the nets, unlike this afternoon. He won't leave right away. As long as you get up to look, you'll definitely see it. To prove I'm not lying. But her brother was convinced it was impossible. He had no intention of getting up at all. This made her extremely anxious. She really wasn't lying. After some pestering, her brother still refused to get up. Helpless, she had to leave, and went back to the window. "Oh right, I can record it. Then brother won't disbelieve me anymore." A sudden idea popped into her head. She quickly took out her phone and turned on the video recording function. She aimed it at the scene and started recording. The night had completely fallen. Normal video mode couldn't capture the picture, so she clicked on night recording mode. Night recording mode. The phone's flashlight would turn on, but she didn't care about that. Zombies have very poor eyesight, and they're on the 10th floor now. They definitely can't see this. She had tested this before, but what she never expected, as soon as her phone's flashlight turned on, the strange zombie she wanted to film suddenly looked up. His scarlet, violent eyes instantly locked onto her who was trying to record. Faced with this situation, she was so scared she almost screamed. She quickly raised her hand and tightly covered her mouth. In just a split second, she knew she had gotten herself into trouble. A zombie that can command other zombies to work obediently and line up neatly when eating. Could such a special zombie be an ordinary zombie? Obviously not. Attracting the attention of such a zombie, could she possibly end up well? Under her brother's protection, she had indeed been a bit naive, still retaining the innocence of a young girl. But that didn't mean anything now. Now she regretted it. Regretted it deeply. Regretted her actions for attracting such a terrifying zombie. Would she and her brother still survive? She was so scared she whimpered and cried. It wasn't just fear. There was also guilt for endangering her brother. She blamed herself for being so reckless. But what happened next made her forget her crying in an instant, because the strange zombie she thought would cause trouble didn't act as she expected. He didn't rush upstairs to cause trouble. Not only did he not cause trouble, instead, after seeing her, the voyeur, he even broke into a gentle smile. The zombie smiled at her. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would never have believed it. Although she had been well protected, she still knew, and understood very well, that such terrifying monsters had no humanity at all. If you were caught by them, You would definitely be devoured. When the apocalypse arrived, a female neighbor she had been close to was eaten by her own family members who had turned into zombies. They even ate their own family. It showed how inhumane zombies could be. But now, he smiled at her. And it was a very gentle smile. Under the moonlit night, he smiled like a kind elder brother next door. Could it be that he was a human pretending to be a zombie? Faced with this unbelievable situation, this was the only possibility she could think of. That this strange zombie was actually a human in disguise. Just like a zombie. His violent scarlet eyes were just some kind of colored contact lenses. Only this explanation could account for why he could fish, and why he would fly into a rage and use gill nets after failing to catch fish, and why now, even though he had discovered her peeking, he had no intention of causing trouble. He even smiled gently at her. But that didn't make sense either. If he was a human in disguise, he would definitely not escape the zombies. Sense of smell, which was as sharp as a dog's. Eyes could be disguised with colored contacts. But the scent on his body could never be disguised. Not to mention commanding zombies to work and obey him obediently. The more she thought about it, the more curious she became. The deeper the doubts in her mind grew. She even felt an urge to find out more. For a moment, she completely forgot her fear. Hiding behind the window, she stuck half her head out and carefully observed the strange zombie by the lake. By the man-made lake? Lin Fan was somewhat amused by this bold little girl, but he wasn't a real zombie after all. Naturally, he wouldn't trouble her. As long as she didn't provoke him, he was quite kind to his former kind. He smiled slightly. As a response, then he continued to collect the fish from the nets and put them all into a large bucket. He had often cast nets to catch fish when he was a child. He was quite skilled at this. It didn't take long to finish packing everything. The bucket was full. It probably weighed around 20 to 25 kilograms, for just him and Wang Mengmeng to eat. As long as they kept the fish in water, they could eat for a long time. Everything was done. He hung the fishing nets on a tree nearby to dry. Then he picked up the large bucket and headed home. The girl upstairs stared fixedly, until Lin Fan completely disappeared into the deeper night. Only then did she look away. Subconsciously, she wanted to go tell her brother. But the phone she had planned to use for recording had fallen to the ground earlier, because she had been too scared to hold it when she covered her mouth. She hadn't managed to record the scene she wanted. In other words, she had no proof, no video evidence. Given how absurd what she had seen was, her sensible brother would definitely not believe her. He would think she was just being naughty and teasing him. That strange zombie must have caught the fish to eat. Next time he comes, I must record it. She made a secret decision. Lin Fan seemed very kind. The fear in her heart had mostly faded. She decided that next time Lin Fan came to cast nets for fish, she would definitely record it, to show her brother, who didn't believe her, that she wasn't being naughty or lying, that all of this was true. Zombies really could cast nets to catch fish, and this one had even smiled gently at her. On the other side, Lin Fan walked back to the commercial street under the night. This time he returned with a full load. His mood was quite good. But the next moment, his steps suddenly stopped, because in the darkness ahead, a scarlet creeping shadow was crawling toward him step by step. Hoarse, heavy gasps sounded like a large broken bellows, particularly distinct in the night, and extremely eerie at the same time. Wandering zombies blocked its path along the way, but when it approached, the wandering zombies all made way, being able to make zombies give way. This was definitely not an ordinary creature. Creeper, Lin Fan, wearing his invisible spotlight glasses, had night vision ability. He saw clearly what it was at a glance. A creeper zombie. The terrifying special zombie often seen in movies. It crawled on all four limbs, hence the name creeper. Don't be fooled by its appearance, without even a shred of skin. Exposing its scarlet muscles, ordinary guns could barely harm it. Even if hit by bullets, it could quickly recover. Relying on its extraordinary defense, ordinary people facing this thing couldn't even resist. Not to mention run away. Even with hot weapons, it was extremely hard to deal with. Only those heavy weapons with great firepower could make it a bit easier, and even that would only help a little. They were so fast that they were hard to hit. Once they evolved, they became killing machines. Lin Fan had a deep impression of such powerful zombies. He didn't expect to encounter one today. This creeper crawled over slowly, constantly sizing Lin Fan up with its eyes. Clearly, it was somewhat wary of this fellow zombie. Its bloodline level was quite high among the zombie population. But Lin Fan's bloodline was no worse than its even more oppressive. As a mutated zombie, it had a fairly high level of intelligence and knew how to weigh the pros and cons. Under normal circumstances, it would be unwilling to conflict with a powerful fellow like Lin Fan, but the smell of food made it a little irritable. Obviously, it was attracted by the fish Lin Fan was carrying back. The strong scent of fresh flesh and blood constantly stimulated its desire to eat. Saliva dripped from its large mouth. It let out a low roar, wanting Lin Fan, its fellow zombie, to share some food with it. Lin Fan understood what it meant, but would he share? It hadn't helped him at all, wanting something for nothing. How was that possible? In response, Lin Fan also let out a low roar. This was a signal for it to leave quickly. But the creeper's desire to eat had been aroused. How could it be willing to leave just like that? If he wouldn't share, then it would just rob. The pressure from this fellow zombie, Lin Fan, was not small. But as a powerful mutated zombie, it was no pushover either. Its thick, sharp front claws dug into the ground. Then it pounced at Lin Fan like a fired cannonball. When crawling on the ground, it didn't look very big. But when it leaped up, it became a huge creature, as big as a standing polar bear, shocking anyone who looked directly at it. But Lin Fan's expression was calm, even a little excited. After his bloodline had evolved strongly, apart from easily killing the 3 thugs who broke into the convenience store, he hadn't had a serious fight yet. Now he finally met a worthy opponent. How could he not be excited? Zombies had a violent nature, and he as a zombie was no exception. It was just suppressed by his humanity usually. Now that this nature was triggered, his combat power soared instantly. He put down the large bucket of fish in his hand. Then he roared and charged forward, planning to confront it head-on. Mutated zombie. Today he would test its strength. The two soon clashed. When the creeper entered combat mode, it would fall into a violent state. It was in this state now. It raised its thick front claws as it charged, and slammed them heavily at Lin Fan, wanting to use its terrifying strength enough to flip a car, to crush Lin Fan's head directly, daring to defy it, not even willing to share a little food. Then it would kill him. Lin Fan sneered coldly at this. He had no intention of dodging. He also raised one hand and slapped back at it. The two collided heavily. Judging from the size of their arms, they were not on the same level. Lin Fan's palm slapping it was no different from a mantis trying to stop a chariot. But the actual situation was the creeper, with its thick back, had its front claw slapped back violently. The unchecked force even directly shattered the flesh on its claw, leaving it bloodied. Its entire arm went numb and lost the ability to move for a moment. Zombies had very weak pain perception, but such a severe injury still made it let out an unavoidable roar. But most of all, it was filled with disbelief. It couldn't believe that in just one exchange, one of its front claws had been disabled. Its front claws wouldn't even be damaged. Even if it slapped a car, now it was bloodied from just one collision. How terrifying was the strength of this fellow zombie? And how tough was his body? Its small brain capacity couldn't give it an answer at all. It was a little dazed for a moment. After slapping back the front claw that attacked him, Lin Fan stamped his foot hard and delivered a high knee strike to the ground. The creeper was still in a dazed state. This knee strike hit its chin firmly. Bang, another dull thud sounded. Already dazed, it became even more confused. Its head was buzzing. Its huge body flew backward as if doing a backflip, and crashed heavily into a car by the roadside, crushing the new energy vehicle flat on the spot. The car let out a wailing alarm, which echoed far in the silent night, attracting the attention of a large number of zombies. But when these attracted zombies saw it was a fight between 2 powerful fellows of their kind, they quickly stopped in their tracks. Who said zombies are not afraid of death? Facing powerful fellows with bloodline suppression, they didn't dare to overstep at all. This kind of suppression from bloodlines is an instinct engraved deep in their blood. Ordinary zombies didn't dare to approach, and the encounter continued. But the following scene was surprising. The creeper had taken 2 heavy hits. After realizing the gap between them, it struggled to climb up from the crushed car. It no longer charged forward aggressively like at the beginning. Instead, it crawled close to the ground and let out whimpering sounds, showing its submission. It was only after 2 exchanges. This powerful mutated zombie was beaten into submission. It wasn't that it was useless, but the gap between them was too big. It had no chance of winning. Continuing to fight would only be asking for abuse, something completely unnecessary. This wasn't something to be ashamed of. Lin Fan had originally wanted to test his skills, but looking at the opponent who had already knelt down in submission, he instantly lost interest. He stepped forward and kicked it away, driving it out of this commercial street. Then he came back, picked up the fish bucket, and continued home. This sudden encounter came to an end hastily. An overwhelming victory, an undisputed crushing. The bloodline enhancement given by the system made him stronger than he had imagined. Even a terrifying mutated zombie was no match for him. This made him even more eager. If his bloodline was enhanced further, how strong would he be? Must have children. Definitely must have children. That field of his at home. He had to work harder to cultivate it. The night grew deeper, but Wang Mengmeng still hadn't slept. She sat in the store waiting for Lin Fan's return. During the wait, she didn't just sit idle either. She rearranged the messy goods, making the store look much more comfortable. She also rearranged the place where they slept. First, she laid a mat on the floor, then placed a soft mattress on top, followed by a smooth quilt cover and 2 couple pillows. It not only looked nice, but was also very comfortable to lie on. It didn't take much effort to find these things, but it still took her thought. Clearly, she had completely decided to live a good life. With this strange zombie, Lin Fan, a zombie boyfriend. Even the bizarre novels she had read before dared not write such a plot, but now she was actually doing it. Thinking this way, she couldn't help but smile. Just then, the roller shutter door outside was opened, followed by the modified bank iron door. Lin Fan was back. Seeing Lin Fan opening the door, Wang Mengmeng's smile grew even brighter. She hopped over to greet him. "You're back," she asked warmly, like a wife waiting at home. Lin Fan nodded slightly in response. Wang Mengmeng was used to this kind of communication. After a warm greeting, she looked at the bucket Lin Fan was carrying. So many fish. Seeing the full bucket, Wang Mengmeng let out an exclamation. She had been eating all kinds of snacks these days. Seeing fresh fish now, her appetite was also aroused. Braised fish, steamed fish, and pickled cabbage fish. These were all her favorite dishes. Or rather, there were no dishes she didn't like. As a typical food lover, as long as it was delicious, she would never refuse it. When Lin Fan went out, he said he would find her something to eat. She had thought it would be snacks not available in the store. She never expected it to be fresh ingredients. This showed how thoughtful he was. She was deeply moved. At this moment, she made up her mind. No matter what, she would have a child with Lin Fan. The fish were soon prepared. The convenience store had a place where the owner usually washed things. Knives and a cutting board. The store also had stock of these. The only trouble was that the faucet had no water. But the store had many large bottles of mineral water, which could completely replace the cut-off tap water. Several large fish were sliced into thin pieces and placed into 2 large basins. One basin was for pickled cabbage fish. The other was for Lin Fan to eat raw. The portions were very generous. More than enough for the 2 of them. After preparation, she set up a small portable stove, lit the fire and placed an iron pot on it. First, she poured the fish bones into it to make soup, then added the sliced fish fillets. A rich aroma soon filled the entire convenience store. Wang Mengmeng held chopsticks and drank her favorite drink. 1 bite of spicy and sour pickled cabbage fish. 1 sip of drink. She ate until her forehead was covered in sweat. Lin Fan didn't eat cooked food, but the sashimi also tasted very good, and he ate it with great enjoyment. It was clearly a cruel apocalypse, but a human and a zombie actually lived a happy little life, forming a sharp contrast with those survivors struggling to survive. It was like 2 completely different worlds. After eating and drinking their fill, Wang Mengmeng took the initiative for the first time, her little face blushing slightly. She wanted to have a child with Lin Fan. Lin Fan naturally wouldn't refuse. Looking at her taking the initiative, he immediately picked her up in his arms. As night deepened, after an intense battle, the 2 finally stopped. They cuddled together and fell asleep. As time passed, this bizarre pair, human and zombie, became more and more like a couple. Ding, just as they were sound asleep in each other's arms, a domestic mobile phone placed aside emitted a notification sound. Then, the signal icon in the upper right corner, once showing no signal, suddenly started moving. Signal bars lit up one by one. The phone that had been offline actually had signal. Signal, the phone has signal. This indicated that someone had started maintaining the signal towers. But this signal was very unstable. It kept cutting in and out, like an unstable power supply. After fluctuating up and down for a while, it stopped changing altogether. But the fact that someone had started maintaining these important devices indicated that this apocalypse was starting to change. After all, ordinary survivors? Who would bother with these things? The next day, the sun rose again, as if nothing had happened. Wang Mengmeng was the same as usual. She got up early to prepare food and drinks. The fish brought back yesterday hadn't been finished. They were still being kept in a large bucket filled with water. Today's menu was still fish. When she was in college in another city, she wasn't used to living with her roommates, so she rented an apartment by herself. During holidays, she cooked her own meals. Because of this, she was quite skilled at cooking. Lin Fan woke up from his sleep. He heard the sound of cooking, coming from the washroom temporarily used as a kitchen, and smiled knowingly. His current life had gradually gotten on track. The only thing missing was a proper child of their own. Thinking about having a child, Lin Fan felt he needed to work overtime even in the morning. He couldn't afford to slack off on this important matter. No matter if the apocalyptic environment changed or not, it would be the same for him. His goal had always been clear. Even if some huge change really happened, he would still live his life as usual, with the system cheat code by his side. He didn't need to worry about anything. He could live well in any environment. Wang Mengmeng was cooking when she was suddenly hugged from behind. Then her short pleated skirt was lifted up. It was time for overtime. Her face instantly turned red. She was still in the middle of cooking. Lin Fan didn't respond to this. You do your thing, I'll do mine. We won't interfere with each other, right? A simple morning meal ended up taking until noon to finish. Wang Mengmeng's face was flushed. She was full. Full in every way. The days that followed went on peacefully, with enough food stored. Lin Fan didn't even go out the door, focused entirely on his endeavor to have a baby. Wang Mengmeng, who was shy at first, gradually began to enjoy it. There's no such thing as an overworked field. This saying aside, their lives were quite comfortable, but the brother and sister by the man-made lake didn't have such peace. Because of the signal change late at night, the sister, who stayed up late playing her phone, noticed it, so she told her brother immediately. The phone having signal again was truly a huge deal. If there was signal, humans could communicate again, instead of fighting alone like now, struggling to survive. There was another point. That is, the people trying to restore the signal could never be ordinary survivors. It was very likely official personnel. After all, only official personnel would spend effort on such things and have the energy to do them. Ordinary survivors could barely survive. They really didn't have the mind to care about this. For example, the two siblings had never had such thoughts. They hadn't even thought about it. So after this happened, their hearts became more and more restless. Finally, after several days of thinking, the brother made a decision. That was to go to Rongcheng's signal tower to find out specific information. The building they lived in wasn't far from this signal tower. As long as they were careful, there would be no problem. This decision made sense. If they could really find the officials, their lives would definitely be much better. But what if the ones restoring the signal weren't officials? Brother, can you not go? I'll be scared alone at home. The sister looked at her brother and said she didn't want her brother to take risks. The brother actually didn't want to go either. But as time passed, zombies became more and more manic, and their strength kept growing. It became harder and harder for him to find food. Every time he went out to find food, he worried he wouldn't come back. If he didn't come back, what would happen to his weak, need-to-be-protected sister? So he had to find the officials. As long as he found the official organization, even if he unfortunately died, the officials would take care of her. So even though he was reluctant, he forced himself to insist. Xiaoyue, don't worry. Brother is just going to take a look. I'll be back soon. He comforted his sister, saying he would be back soon. Seeing her brother's determination, the sister had no choice. She could only nod in agreement. I'll wait for you at home. Besides me, don't open the door for anyone who knocks, the brother warned again. Then he picked up a blood-stained fire axe, opened the door and walked out carefully. Watching her brother leave, worry filled the sister's face. She didn't even feel like playing her favorite phone. Finally, she went to the window, wanting to see that zombie who had smiled at her. But since last time, she hadn't seen him for several days. It was as if what she had seen before was just a dream. Until the afternoon, Just as she was about to look away, she saw that familiar figure again. That figure was Lin Fan. After days and nights of relentless efforts to have a baby, even with his powerful physique, he felt a little exhausted. Coincidentally, the fish he caught last time had been eaten. So he went out. The fishing nets were still hanging on the trees. Several zombies who had tasted the sweetness had been lingering around the area. When they smelled Lin Fan's scent, they actually showed enthusiasm. Zombies being enthusiastic about working. Would you believe it if you heard it? But it was happening now. He didn't even need to drive them deliberately. After tying fishing nets around one of their waists, they waded across the lake and cast the nets themselves. Lin Fan didn't need to do anything. He just sat by the shore and watched his laborers work. Sensing a gaze on him, he looked in that direction. Facing his gaze, the young sister instantly shrank her head. But she didn't look away completely. She showed half her head and stared at Lin Fan from a distance. The more she looked, the more she thought Lin Fan was a human in disguise, not a real zombie. As for why he wasn't attacked by zombies, she thought it was some kind of special ability. Since she often played with her phone, she had read apocalyptic novels. Things like superpowers or mental powers. She had read about them all. Because of this, after realizing Lin Fan had no malice towards her, she wasn't too afraid of him. After all, if Lin Fan really wanted to trouble her, he would have done it long ago. Are you human? After staring at Lin Fan for a while, she found a drawing board at home and a black marker. She wrote a few words on it, then held it up to the window to communicate with Lin Fan from a distance. Lin Fan found this amusing. He didn't expect her to not only not be afraid of him, but also write to communicate with him from a distance. Was she bold, naive, or was he such a special zombie that he really didn't look scary at all? Lin Fan stroked his chin, preparing to scare her a little, but before he could start, something popped up to interrupt him. When he saw this thing, Lin Fan's expression turned a little ugly. Someone was stealing his fish. This wasn't a figure of speech. It was literally true. After the fishing net caught fish, some big fish jumped to the surface, trying to struggle and escape, splashing waves everywhere. This should have been a happy sight. But a sneaky guy rushed out from the bushes by the lake and jumped straight into the lake. He grabbed the fish from the fishing net. He grabbed several big fish in a row. Before climbing out of the lake, he sprinted away. The whole process was smooth and quick, faster than an ordinary person could react. But was Lin Fan an ordinary person? As soon as the sneaky guy rushed out, Lin Fan noticed him immediately. When the guy grabbed the fish and climbed back onto the shore, Lin Fan was already waiting for him on the shore. Dare to steal my fish? It seemed the lesson he gave last time wasn't enough. Lin Fan angrily blocked its way. This audacious guy was none other than the creeper from last time. It hadn't managed to steal anything last time, and even got a severe beating. Yet it still didn't give up. When it saw Lin Fan come to catch fish, it secretly hid by the lake, waiting until the net caught fish. Then it snatched them before anyone could react. A zombie going to such lengths to steal something. This was really ridiculous. Even Lin Fan thought it was absurd, but it was happening right in front of him. But absurdity aside, daring to steal from him was practically asking for death. Last time, because they were of the same kind. He had let it go, but this time he wouldn't hold back. Blocking its way, he prepared to take care of it. But another unexpected thing happened. It seemed the creeper had already prepared for being intercepted. It directly lifted the cover of a sewage manhole and crawled in. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared like a red loach. Inside was the city's sewage underground passage. Not only was it crisscrossed in all directions, but it also smelled terrible. Lin Fan only stepped forward to take a look, then lost the desire to chase. It was just a few fish. He really couldn't bring himself to chase after it in that filth. The creeper's cunning refreshed his understanding of mutated zombies. It seemed the zombies in this world weren't as simple as he thought. Even though he had only seen one, Lin Fan could tell from it how special these mutated zombies in the world were. If even a creeper was like this, what would other zombies be like? Humans being completely overwhelmed by zombies meant there must be many such special mutated zombies. Otherwise, relying only on ordinary zombies that wandered aimlessly, it would be impossible to suppress humans, who had powerful weapons to this extent. At the very least, human civilization wouldn't collapse so quickly, losing their rule after so many years. Thinking about this, Lin Fan's expression couldn't help but grow solemn, and he also felt a sense of urgency. He had originally thought his strength was sufficient. He had easily overwhelmed all the opponents he had encountered, but now, this fish thief had taught him a lesson. If such high intelligence was combined with great strength, even he might not be able to handle it for sure. Although he was also a zombie. In theory, they wouldn't conflict with each other. But if they really met, who could say for sure what would happen? Not to mention anything else. Would he just stand by and watch when others stole his food? And if a special zombie targeted Wang Meng Meng, could he remain indifferent? Conflicts would definitely be unavoidable. Also, humans who controlled powerful weapons. Would they really be willing to stay dormant like this? All those powerful hot weapons. Even nuclear weapons hadn't been used yet. No, I need to become stronger faster. Otherwise, it won't be safe. He had finally gotten used to life here. He didn't want to die again. Lin Fan decided he needed to speed up his path to becoming stronger. Otherwise, he wouldn't be safe. And the only way for him to become stronger quickly now was to evolve his own bloodline. Just like last time, 1 tube of bloodline evolution potion, and his strength would soar dramatically. But given the current situation, Wang Mengmeng couldn't have a child anytime soon. It would take a long time. The reward for having a child wouldn't be available in the short term. Then the only remaining option was the reward for marrying again. Thinking about marrying again. Lin Fan looked up again, toward the young girl who was communicating with him from a distance. If he could make a deal with one girl, naturally he could make a deal with another. He had food and drinks now. His bargaining chips were still very strong. But looking at the girl's small frame, she might not even be an adult yet. He immediately dismissed this thought. A person could be ruthless, but not worse than a beast. With worries on his mind, Lin Fan also lost the desire to scare her. Was he unhappy about the stolen fish? Lin Fan had no intention of communicating, but the young girl seemed to be getting more enthusiastic.